Spartan warrior never lets their back hit the ground. Even in death, a Spartan stands tall for battle. You're all Spartans, are you not?
As Kratos and Deimos were outside training, two powerful entities approached them, a male and a female. One of them quickly snatched up Deimos. To save his brother, Kratos lunged at the god trying to stop him, but was quickly struck down, leaving an open wound over his eye. However, seeing how weak Deimos was in his arms compared to the boy who lunged at him, the male figure came up with an idea. He dropped Deimos and picked up Kratos instead. The female figure on the other horse spoke in a language neither of the boys could understand, but it sounded as if she disapproves of her partner's actions. However, the male didn't care and started to leave. Deimos cried for his brother Kratos. Tears ran down his face. He shouted for his brother to return, but Deimos was too scared and frightened to move. He could hear Kratos fighting as hard as he could, grunting and thrashing, but slowly he got further and further away. The female figure stared at the whining child. Deimos looked at her and uttered one word: "Please." The woman stared for a moment before turning around and riding away. This is the story of what would happen if Kratos was taken but Deimos wasn't. This was a very hard story to make, as I had to answer a few key questions that I think weren't meant to be answered in the God of War story, but I'm excited to hear what you think. Let's get right into it. The following day, Deimos cursed his weakness and decided to dedicate his life to becoming a stronger Spartan. But that's much easier said than done. During Spartan training, Deimos struggled more than the others. The harsh training regimen took a large toll on his body. He was very weak and was criticized by everyone. When the elders saw he was struggling, they beat him even harder. When they saw he was emotional, they didn't feed him. And one day, when the elders decided he was too weak to be a Spartan, they threw him to the wolves. But Deimos, although weak in body, was strong in spirit. Although he was starving and severely beaten, he fought and attacked the wolves. He killed and ate the wolves, and in this moment of pure brutality and pain was a turning point for Deimos. After he returned to the elders, he continued his training over the next few years. He was beaten so much, pain became a part of him. Eventually, the beatings from the elders no longer affected him. In fact, he started to fight back. When he struggled, he worked even harder, teaching himself discipline and focus. In times of darkness, he always thought of his brother's strength and his will. Remembering how he desperately fought to free himself, those thoughts allowed him to press on. At first, Deimos was ridiculed by the other kids who were in the same training camp as him, and he was often bullied physically and mentally. However, after seeing how hard he trained, even though he received the worst punishments from the elders, they eventually were inspired by his determination and befriended him. In fact, although no one realized, not even Deimos himself, when others watched how determined he was, how focused he became, it made his fellow friends work even harder as well. Now we need to pause here. In making this video, one of the challenges I faced was creating a god power for Deimos. Thanks to 2018 and Ragnarok, we learned more about how god powers work. As you get older, your powers manifest into something unique to you. In Atreus' case, he was always really good with reading any language, and even speaking whatever language. But later on, he gained the ability to transform into various creatures and gained the ability of soul magic, even casting it without him even knowing, like at the start with Ragnarok on Fenrir. In my What If Calliope Returned video, which so many God of War fans loved, I gave her the power to heal. Since so many people liked the story and liked the power I gave her, I decided to have the two mirror each other. Calliope being the one to heal, and her uncle Deimos being the one to make other people stronger. Another note, Deimos is implied to be a son of Zeus, just like Kratos. At the end of Ghost of Sparta, the Gravekeeper says, 2 down, 1 to go, implying he's trying to kill off his bastard family, the two being Kratos' mom and brother. Deimos is not as durable or powerful as Kratos, even though he's definitely stronger than the average Spartan, Kratos also held back when he fought Deimos. So with Deimos being a god, I decided to give him this god power. Now, there's one other thing I want to mention. When Deimos died in Ghost of Sparta, Kratos attained a rage and aura that we'd never seen before and that he would never perform again. So in this context, I decided to make it that Deimos makes other people stronger, bringing out their inner abilities just like Kratos when Deimos died. And again, for context, I'm not saying this is why Kratos had that rage mode. I'm just, putting two and two together. But anyways, let's continue on with the video. Somehow, Deimos survived training, and over the next few years, Deimos and his fellow Spartans went on countless adventures in war. He became a hardened soldier, no longer the crying child who didn't even attempt to save his brother's life. Instead, he became ruthless. His closest allies were the Spartans that bullied him at first in the training camp, and now that they served together, they were all brothers in arms. He also went on to find love, having a wife and a daughter who just turned 1 year old. Deimos fought many battles under many Spartan generals who all fell in combat. However, dark times fell onto Sparta. Unlike the original story where the Spartans had many successes with Kratos and thrived under him, without Kratos, the Spartans as an army grew very weak, suffering great losses, and all of Greece laughed at them, which made the Spartans a target for the various armies of Greece. One day, the barbarian king and his army approached Sparta and stood a distance away from the small kingdom, attempting to finish them off once and for all and take their resources. The barbarian king sent the messenger and offered Sparta a chance to surrender. If they surrendered, all of them would be spared, but all of their resources, women, and children will be taken, and Spartans will be workers for the barbarians, making them slaves. The oracles and the counselors, facing many losses, actually started to consider this offer. With all of their defeats, this way, no more Spartan blood would be shed. However, a common soldier within the Spartan ranks became disgusted with the thought: Deimos. He refused any treaty or surrender and threatened to kill the Spartan higher-ups for being weak. Seeing the elders willingly give up Sparta without a fight reminded him of the brother he couldn't save. Deimos, with these thoughts, grew very angry, saying they should face death in battle. That is how a true Spartan should die.
We should face death in battle. That is how a true Spartan should die.
Without a second thought, Deimos stabbed the messenger of the barbarian king's army, got on a horse, and drew his sword, screamed at the Spartan army and the higher-ups watching him.
A Spartan warrior never lets their back hit the ground. Even in death, a Spartan stands tall for battle. You're all Spartans, are you not?
Without waiting for a response or a reaction, Deimos instantly rode out into the army that was waiting outside of Sparta. When the other Spartans realized what he was doing, they grew inspired by his words and did the same. Following behind Deimos, screaming and drawing their swords, this will be their final battle together, the end of the Spartan nation. Deimos, facing death, roared as he moved forward into the army ahead of him. He shouted,
"For my wife, my child, my mother, for the glory of Sparta!"
He roared as he got closer to his enemies. The Spartans behind him roared with him. They all knew this was the end, knowing wherever they end up, at least they died together. Suddenly, Deimos started to be devoured in a thick red aura, the same with the Spartans behind him. The armies now clashed and the Spartans cut through them like butter. As the small Spartan army pressed forward into the thousands of barbarian king soldiers, Deimos and his allies slashed, stabbed, and destroyed. Hours of bloodshed went by. Eventually, the Spartans emerged victorious. As the Spartans cheered, Deimos held the severed head of the barbarian king, and he spoke to his allies.
This is what happens when anyone approaches a Spartan. We are proud. We are strong. We will defend our home. We will control all of Greece. This is just the start. The world will know and fear the Spartans. No more losses, no more defeats.
Deimos slammed the head of the barbarian king onto a spear and held that spear high, yelling to the top of his lungs. He continued his speech.
This world thinks because we've lost a few battles, they can approach us and demand our surrender. We will strike back. We will have our revenge on every nation for the Spartan blood they have shed. For the glory of Sparta!
Over the next 10 years, the Spartans will rampage across Greece, crushing every army and every settlement. From the Persians to the monsters, soon all of the armies in Greece bowed and merged with the Spartan Empire, all with Deimos leading the charge. The only army that was left alone was the army of Athens. Deimos returned to Sparta and saw his child for the first time in a decade. He left when she was an infant and now standing on 2 legs. Deimos, upon returning, was declared a war hero and the very pride of all Spartan customs. The previous king was executed for his weakness as he simply stood by and watched Deimos bring Sparta to glory. Now with Deimos' return, they gave him the nickname and rank of Leonidas. He was now king of the Spartans. For Deimos though, only one thing was on his mind when he took the throne. What happened to his brother? He accepted Kratos must have died long ago, but who took him and for what purpose? Spartans do not give into emotions, but Deimos fooled himself saying he will find the truth for the security of future Spartans. The next day, after gaining the throne, he put on his armor and planned on gathering his close allies that he took the Spartan training with, his best soldiers, and find answers. He was on his way out the door when suddenly Athena, the goddess, appeared in his doorway. Deimos' eyes widened, a very god in front of him. Quickly he fell to his knees and bowed his head. Athena said, "I have information about your brother, King Deimos. Are you interested?" Deimos, with a calm anger, rose to his feet, and his energy completely changed. Before Athena could speak again, Deimos raised his sword to her neck and said very calmly as to not alert any Spartans if they're nearby, and he said to her, "What do you know?" Alright everybody, that's going to be it for this video. I wanted to continue it, but this is getting very long, so I think part 2 will be in the future if you want it. If you do want a part 2, let me know by leaving a comment and leaving a like on this video. Also, if you like this story, leave a comment and a like as well. How do you think that the story should play out? I will be taking suggestions in the comment section down below. I'm going to be out of here. Thank you guys and girls for listening. Deuces.